Hello and welcome to the latest Talking City episode, a podcast all about all things Manchester City. My name's Simon Bajkowski and I'm joined by Joe Bray. And let us get straight into it, Joe. What's the hotel room like?
The hotel room is good in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It's quite a big one. I've got myself quite a good location as well, right in the centre of the town. Although the town isn't very big at all, um, but yeah, it's good, and I'm hoping it's not. I've not peaked early with the good hotel because there's three more to come on this tour.
Nice. Yeah. See, the Manchester Evening News right at the heart of everything Manchester City related. That's what we like. And we will get talking about the tour probably in the second part. But in the first part, we're going to talk about transfers because everyone wants to talk about transfers. And it seems like a, about half the City squad is off to Saudi Arabia, would you say, Joe?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a new CFG club over there, doesn't there? It'd be quite easy to just put half the squad on a plane and set up a new team over there. It's another week, another set of Saudi rumours, isn't it?
Yes. So we've had. I mean, there's nothing necessarily. There are a few new things, but basically, there's been long-standing interest, hasn't there, in Kevin De Bruyne and Ederson all summer from various Saudi clubs, and I mean, City have already knocked back one offer for Ederson from Al Nassr last week or
Hmm.
2 weeks ago. And Kevin De Bruyne has said he'd be up for the challenge, but he's going to speak to City. And I think there were a few reports this week that he's now agreed terms with a Saudi club. And yeah, just fill us in on where we're at.
We're probably the same place we were beforehand. I think the De Bruyne rumours all stem from what he said, don't they? Where he said he would consider an absurd offer because of the life changing money that it would offer his family, and even though he's on quite a lot of money already, you can't. You've got to admire the sort of honesty about that. But he also said, I think at the start of the month, that there had been no contact with any club. So that might have changed, but also there's been no contact. And I think the expectation is that he will be a City player this season, and that won't really come to anything. So I think, yeah, there was a lot of flurry of worry and excitement and whatever you want to say when that sort of agreed terms rumour came out. But it seems like there's nothing in that. Ederson, there is contact with Al Ittihad, because Al Nassr wanted him, had a bid rejected, and then they've gone and signed another goalkeeper. So now Al Ittihad are interested, but haven't made an offer, and City are going to hold firm on a valuation that is, I think, significantly more than the offer that Al Nassr put in. Was that 25 million? So
Yeah, yeah.
it will
See,
come to that, and yeah, if they offer that, he might go. City might sign a replacement, but at the moment, it's not yet materialised into a bid.
yeah, because Al Ittihad had been interested in Edison pretty much all summer. I think they were interested before Al Nassr were, but then Al Nassr came in with the bid, and then it seemed like it was all over, and now it's suddenly back again with Al Ittihad kind of interested without necessarily kind of like you say meeting City's valuation. And I think Al Ittihad are just about to buy Diaby from Aston Villa for about
Hmm.
60 million.
And they've
So
just signed uh, Houssem Aouar, or however you
yeah,
pronounce his surname, which is another midfielder, and yeah, that adds to the feeling that De Bruyne isn't going there. But
yeah, but sort of adds to the feeling as well that like City can say, hang on a minute, you're spending this much on this guy and this
Mhm.
much on this guy. We've got one guy who's won. Well, they both won 6 Premier League titles and have still got plenty more to give. So if you're paying that for these people, then we can probably expect a bit more from you for our players.
And City don't need to sell. They're in a position where everything's in their hands. I think Ali had 6 foreign players and they're allowed up to 8. So that's they've got to have those considerations as well. And they're all under the same ownership. Am I right? It's
Yeah,
a
there's one sporting director for the entire league.
So yeah,
Um,
maybe another Saudi club will come in a week's time and want to sign both of them. But yeah, it feels like Ederson is there's something a bit more concrete than De Bruyne. But whether anything happens is another story. They've got to make the valuation first.
yeah, I mean, and as you said earlier, it's kind of like we're in the same position where we have been all summer, where they're not likely to go. It doesn't
Hmm.
feel like either of them yet will go. And De Bruyne as well sort of said that he'd speak to City before, after his holiday, and decide what he wanted to do while being expected to stay. So that sort of, like I say, Ederson feels a bit more concrete. Um, how long can it go on for? Like, how long do Saudi clubs kind of linger and City, Manchester City as a club love to be relaxed. They love to be relaxed about people coming in for their players, don't they? Like, we're fine. We'll get on with
Hmm.
it. It's fine. It happens or it doesn't. Like, at some point, the stance becomes it's too late for you to bid for them. But how long does City kind of let this go on? Because it can't be nice for well, how long does City and the players allow it to go on? Because it is not great for stability when you don't know if your number one goalkeeper's staying or not, and we're 3 weeks away from the season or whatever.
Um, well, we're speaking to Pep Guardiola later, so this is a great idea to a question. But that's one of the things that they've got to consider. And I think Ederson would be probably easier to replace because they've got Ortega who would step up, and then it's just about finding a number two. And you would expect that they would have some ideas of who they would want to get in that eventuality. If you're going to replace De Bruyne, that's a different challenge altogether. And we've seen the names that have been linked in terms of Paqueta and Guimaraes and those sort of players. I think Eberici Eze is back on the rumour mill today, and they're not going to come cheap. If you want an attacking player who's going to come near to Kevin De Bruyne, you're going to have to sign someone for a lot of money, and those clubs are also going to want a replacement as well. So yeah, I think there will have to be a point where City say no, you've got to stay. But I would think that Ederson is probably easier to deal with as a goalkeeper, especially given that they've said Stefan Ortega is the best number two that City have ever had, and there's I think fans would be more than happy if Ortega was number one if that happened. But personally, I think Ederson should stay for City and make City play better and is more important. At the same time, if he was to go, they've got a ready-made replacement.
Is he ready made though? I don't know. Edison didn't have a great season last year, but I still think he is head and shoulders above anyone else in terms of what he brings to the team. Like, I get that.
I don't think you're signing anyone better than Ortega.
No, but I don't necessarily think that Edison to Ortega is like the the sort of clean sweep. Oh, everything's the same again. Like there was the cup final wasn't great, was it? And that was after we'd all convinced ourselves that like Ortega was the perfect goalkeeper after his save at Spurs, and what do you even need Ederson? And then
Mm-hmm.
Ortega goes and does that in the cup final, and you're like, well, yeah. I think Ederson's been there so long that you kind of forget how everything that he brings to the team, but it's hard to see. In my head, losing Ederson, bringing in a number two, and having Ortega as number one is a downgrade because you're losing the best number
Yeah, I
one that
would agree with that.
you've got, and you're losing the best number two that you've got. So you've got a guy who's not as good as your other number one, and a guy that's not as good as your previous number two. Um,
I think if Ederson didn't exist and Ortega was your goalkeeper, I think you're more than happy and you've got no complaints. And yeah, the cup final happened, but so did Tottenham and so did all the games that he's come in and done quite well. And not even the games where he's come off the bench, the games that he started, I think he was very good and you see some second choice goalkeepers come in and City completely change the way they play, and there's panic at the back. And yeah, I'm saying this with sort of conveniently ignoring the cup final, but the games that he did start when Ederson was injured, you didn't notice the goalkeeper, and that's kind of what you want. He made the saves, he kept things going, and I don't think he'd be a long term sort of 3-4 years solution. I think they'd need to go back into the market next year, but you've also got two goalkeepers north of 30, and they're going to have to refresh that department at some point. But no, I also agree that you've got to keep Ederson, and I've never subscribed to the view that he's not a good goalkeeper or all this, that he doesn't save his first shot and that sort of thing. It was season before last, wasn't it, where there was a massive sort of online campaign that he wasn't a good goalkeeper, and it was
Yeah.
just baffling. I think you've got to look at Guardiola, who
But then he
always
won the
says
Champions League,
he's
didn't
number
he?
one. Exactly.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I would say the Saudi picture and the ongoing speculation around Ederson and De Bruyne, it's not really, doesn't feel like a comfortable transfer window for City at the moment, does it? We're not really sure
No,
where they're going or who they're going to keep.
because they've signed Savio, and that's he's going to sort of offer another option out wide. But yeah, it feels like there are places that maybe they do need to strengthen, but there's just not the noise or not the. Yeah, it's a different transfer window. There's no less money around. Khaldoon said that the rules in the Premier League are going to make it more difficult to sign players. It feels a bit different, and yeah, when you've got players like De Bruyne and even Bernardo saying he wants to go again, which is just his long term stance. We've been waiting all summer, haven't we, for just something, and there's been nothing in terms of links or movement, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be anything else unless someone leaves.
Yeah, yeah, and it should be said, like you said, that the chairman thought it was going to be slow, and Liverpool haven't signed anyone, and I think Arsenal have just brought in the defender or bringing in a defender. Chelsea have been sort of PSRing their way through the summer, so they've slowed down a bit. But yeah, there's not been loads of transfers kind of in the league, and it is very difficult to improve a team that's just won the league for the fourth time in a row. But yeah, the general mood seems to be kind of just a bit of uncertainty, I would say. However, like you say, speaking to Pep Guardiola in a few hours. So yes, follow that on the MEM website whenever that drops, because Guardiola is, nobody's been able to speak to him all summer. And so it will be a real chance to ask him, although I suspect there won't be many questions, will there? It will be a bit of a strange event, as they always are on
Yeah,
tours.
there'll be a lot of local media and asking him, does he enjoy North Carolina when he's probably not left the hotel? And I mean, we'll ask him about his contract, and I can probably write that piece before I set off to the press conference, because he's almost certainly not going to tell us anything new. We can find out what he thinks of Savio. We can ask about De Bruyne and Ederson, and we'll get an insight, and then we've got plenty of chances to speak to him over the next couple of weeks before and after games. But yeah, I think he had one interview in a golf tournament when he was talking about a couple of Barcelona related things, and we've got a lot of stuff that we can talk about. But like you say, if there's no transfers, who better to ask than the manager? And I'm sure he'll defer to Cheeky and say, "Oh, I find out when they arrive." But he must have an opinion on the market and the business as well.
Yeah, and also his feel, like, because fans are a bit not concerned, but they're just a bit agitated by the lack of any activity in the
Mm-hmm.
in the window. But I suspect that a lot of those will be less agitated if Pep comes out and says, "No, I'm completely happy. I, don't want anything else, or don't need anything else, or anything like that." And we'll have to assess how much we believe him if he does say that. But yeah, I think the next time we podcast will be
Ahead of
will
the Milan game.
Yeah, so you'll have had 2 press conferences with Pep
Oh,
by that time. So there should be developments
yeah,
then. Let's talk Savio for a bit. Savinho,
Savinho.
as we
I'm
must.
glad he's done that and put a line on what we can call him, because already it was, is it Savio, is it Savinho? If he wants Savinho, that helps us a lot.
Yeah, it does. Although, yeah, Rodri has Rodrigo on his shirt, doesn't he? Is it going to be one of those?
True.
But yes, Savinho. Let's stick with Savinho for now, who was announced as City's first deal of the window. Someone tweeted me the other day and said, "Do you think they're not signing anyone because of the charges or whatever?" And it was like, you signed someone yesterday, um, and it was announced last week, back end of last week, that a deal over the line for 21 million, rising to 33. Which, I don't know about you, that seems pretty good value to me.
I would say fair market value.
Well, we know it is definitely fair market value, don't we? Because it's been ratified by the Premier League and everyone. But I am sort of waiting for maybe a few months into the season where that fee starts to be questioned and people forget that the Premier League have said it's okay, or wonder if City are in cahoots with the Premier League or anything like this. But yeah, I was reading some data company who had put his valuation at 40 million. So 21 feels like a steal.
Yeah, if you look at his record in La Liga, and was it third or fourth he finished? If you take the best player from the third best team in Spain, who's contributed 20, 30 goals a season for 20 million, you're laughing, aren't you? And a Brazilian international he scored at the Copa America, he's offers something different, and yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one. And the talk was, is he going to go out on loan? They've clearly decided that's not woken them up, but he's made the decision for City and he's going to stay there. And a bit like Alvarez, where it was probably a loan was on the cards, and then he just couldn't stop scoring for River Plate, and he's really kicked on. So they'll be hoping he has a similar impact.
Yeah, I don't know if you were flying or preparing to fly or something when the news when it was announced. Did you see many of his quotes or his interviews?
Um, I was preparing to fly. I was in transit, so I saw a few, but not all of them. But I was interested that he was saying he wants to be a right winger, which is directly opposite to Doku. And we spoke to Rico Lewis in Raleigh yesterday, day before, and one of the things he said was the fact that you have a direct winger, probably now on both wings, it stretches defences and will give the midfielders a bit more chance to operate and impact games. So it could be a return to. I mean, the chance of having 2 Dokus in a team is quite exciting and could get fans off the seat.
Yeah, yeah. It really interested me that he said he wanted to play on the right because he's spent the last year on the left, and everyone's been raving about this natural winger on the left. And then, yeah, he played for Brazil on the right. But yeah, very interesting to see where he ends up because I think Doku came over and said he wants to play on the right, and then played one game on the right and was not very good and quickly preferred the left. So it could solve City's issues on the right, and it could, or it could just add another player to the left. But it's going to be interesting how that all shapes up. But Savinho will not be on the tour. We're going to go to a quick break, and then we will be back to talk about everyone who is on the tour and some of those who aren't. And yeah, we'll get the latest on what's going down in Chapel Hill. Welcome back to the Talking City podcast. We've talked transfers and now we're talking tour. Manchester City are in Chapel Hill currently preparing for a game against Celtic, which is when is it? Tuesday night. Tuesday night if you're in the US, and kind of
It's
early hours of Wednesday morning in the UK.
yeah,
Um,
it's a really good time for me over here. Probably
what
get
time?
a
What time is it?
I don't know. It's just a normal evening time, but it's not a 3 a.m. finish. So
Fine, fine. Yeah, yeah. And you like a good glass of water after a game though, so might be a three
of
a.m.
course,
finish.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So the squad that has gone out, Pep's took 27 players out, and probably 7, 8, 9 of them are senior. About 9, I think, but 3 of those are goalkeepers. So it's a really youth heavy squad, isn't it?
yeah, and I'm sure you're including Calvin Phillips in that, where there's not many recognisable names. I think Guardiola and Kovacic are going to be in New York onwards, so that adds a bit of senior feel to the squad. But yeah, it's a lot of youth players, and I was looking. The youngest player is Stefan Mafuni, who's 16, and the oldest is Scott Carson, who had won the Champions League by the time Mafuni was born. So it it shows just how like the stretch of players, and of the players here, you'd probably expect two or three to be involved in the sort of first choice 11 going forwards. Haaland is a massive boost to have him doing all the commercial activity and that sort of thing. Grealish as well, but his focus should be on what he's doing on the pitch and winning his place back. But now I'm equally looking forward to seeing some of these youngsters who we've seen flashes of, but getting a lot of minutes could be quite exciting for some of them. And we've seen Rico Lewis do it, we've seen Oscar Bob, and someone might be able to persuade Guardiola that they can play more of a role in the first team.
And the makeup of the squad with senior and young players. So we've got Haaland, Grealish, Oscar Bob, who counts as a senior player despite 1 year, and Rico Lewis, and and then of kind of the the players that have been out, sort of James McAtee is a youngster but has had 2 years playing Championship and then Premier League football. So all of your most experienced players are kind of at the top end of the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So we should kind of see an experienced goalkeeper, experienced at the top end, and then kind of behind them, so your back four and Rodri and maybe another midfielder. Plenty of room for people to stand out.
Yeah, I think the defence will be quite an interesting one. You would expect Lewis to go at right back, but he told us quite clearly he wants to play further up the pitch, and that's what he's looking to do. So this looks like it could be an opportunity for him to show that with no De Bruyne, no Bernardo, no Rodri, etc. Callum Doyle's there. He's won promotion uh, from the Championship, was in the playoff final the year before. He's lined up for a loan as soon as he gets back, but he could just be a bit of a steady hand. And uh, of the defenders, the more experienced ones from that academy group are probably going to go out on loan. So it's looking like the younger ones are the ones who'll be staying at City and being in the EDS, who might have the chance. But then your defence is quite well stocked, so it feels like it's a chance for these players to show what they can do, but maybe then build on it in a year's time, after that. But yeah, I mentioned Mafuni before. I've been impressed with him, and he's only 16. Jadel Katongo was at Peterborough last season and seemed to do quite well. And could he stay and sort of play a fringe role, or does he want to go out and build some experience? There's a lot of options. I think you've highlighted Tom Galvez at left back as well before, and there's a free run at left back now. I think there's a bit of talk of a loan afterwards, but he could be interesting to see how he does. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of names that we don't necessarily see and we might not see again, but we thought that maybe about Rico Lewis 2 years ago, and he's not looked back.
Yeah, and I think the Peterborough, was it the Peterborough chairman rather than the manager, who said City have got £100 million player on the hands in Katongo. So no no pressure there. But
I mean, the Peterborough chairman isn't averse to big statements like that, but he is highly rated.
yes, yeah, very well put that. The Yeah, Galvez is interesting because Sergio Gomez has left on a permanent deal, and you would expect if City aren't going to sign someone, then they will need a young defender to step up. I know they've got um, Nathan Ake and Josko Guardiola, and Rico can play there a bit, but yeah, you would think that kind of another sort of person floating around the fringes of the squad, at least one City going to need from the academy. So it really is all open, and sort of normally you would like your youngsters playing with a senior player to sort of get them accustomed to it, but they're all going to be playing together. It should be a very youthful looking backline, and then just in front of them, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Pep does against Celtic, just in terms of, does he go with the safe option in Calvin Phillips as a six, even though he's not really got plans to play Calvin Phillips as a six all season, or does he give Jacob Wright or Mamadou Sissoko a chance?
I, I would expect he'll do a bit of everything, won't he? And it'll be interesting to see what Phillips does, because yeah, you would expect a loan or a permanent exit, but if no one comes in, you've got to keep him around. So it it feels very unlikely, but he does have a chance to maybe kickstart something. I can't see it, but if he's going to do it, he's got to do it in the next 4 games. But yeah, I think Wright and Sissoko, they've looked all right when they've come on. They've looked very good in the academy when it was a bit of a difficult season for the 21s. So no, I think those two are the ones who are probably the ones to look out for. And they've only really got 1 game to show, because I would expect Kovacic then comes back, and the movement will be gearing him up to start the Community Shield, because Rodri probably won't be there, and Kovacic is the best option there. Do you have Kovacic and Rico Lewis in a sort of double pivot with one of them moving forward a bit more? That could be another option. So I think that's going to be one of the themes of these few games, of finding a plan B for Rodri, because it doesn't seem like they're going to sign a backup. So can they find a solution that might not be one player, but a couple of players, or a system that covers the holding midfield, because they're going to need it. If Rodri might play up to 80 games next season, he said himself he can't do it. So they're going to need another option to cope without him, and they didn't quite find it last season.
Phillips would be the dream, really, wouldn't he? Everyone's kind of written him off, but he was signed in 2022 to kind of give Rodri this cover, and never really made it, and has gone downhill so dramatically that he doesn't seem to have any kind of future at City. Like, Everton are interested, but are Everton going to pay what City would want? Could they even do a loan? It felt very unlikely, and heard very unlikely from earlier in the summer. Whether that could be resurrected, I don't know, but it is an unusual time for Phillips, I suppose, who will want to show what he can do, but is kind of knows that he's probably not going to still be at City.
Do you know what? If his frisbee skills are anything to go by, he's gonna be top notch this summer.
Yeah. Although, is it kind of an inverse thing, and sort of the Pep would say that the worse you are at frisbee, the better you are at football.
We'll have to see in Pep's attempt. Yeah, probably would.
Yeah. You spoken to Rico Lewis already. Mentioned he sort of wants to play further up the pitch. How was he to speak to?
He's great to speak to, and you forget that he's just 19, and it was 2 years ago on tour that he came off the bench against Bayern Munich and struck the post. And I think he said that game changed everything, because it sort of, he played 10 minutes and was the best player on the pitch against Bayern, and then played a really important role in the treble season. Not quite last season, but we didn't quite ask him, are you going to leave? But there has been sort of some suggestions of does he leave on loan, and is that the best thing for him? But he's very insistent that he's in the right place and he's not going to do anything different to try and turn his fortunes around. He's just going to keep on doing what he's doing. He kept saying he's not going to do anything special, which feels like Rico Lewis in a nutshell. He just gets on with the job, doesn't he? And sort of trusts his own ability. And I think he knows that he's got probably a bit of a point to prove in terms of playing more this season. And if he wants to play in midfield, there's a lot of competition there to do it. He's probably going to get more games at right back, so he might not get what he wants, but he definitely wants to be involved more in the attacking. And it was quite an interesting insight into what he thinks. But I would back him to have quite a good pre-season because he's had a rest, he's had a summer off. And there was quite a funny moment where he did some interviews with the local media, and they're saying, "Oh, what do you think of North Carolina?" And it was less than 24 hours since they arrived, so he was basically saying, "Oh, it looks nice from the window of a coach, but I've not left." And then they said, "Have you ever had barbecue?" And he was like, "Yeah, we've got barbecue in the UK." And there was a very strange back and forth where I think the presenter meant the special North Carolina type of barbecue, but
right,
Rico just was answering, "Yes, I've had barbecue in my life." So. But you do feel, I mean, he took those questions like a pro.
Yeah.
And then again, you're reminded that he's 19, and we were saying he's one of the eldest players on the tour. He's one of the most senior, but then he was like, "No, I've played with Katongo, and there was another one of the youngsters since he was 6 years old. So he's probably closer to the academy lads, and he knows them better. But he's one of the more senior players, and he's won a treble, and he's a Champions League winner. So it's probably quite a good camp for him to be with his mates, but also have a bit of a senior position."
Yes, yeah. And have you seen more of North Carolina than Rico has? Have you been able to follow the team at all around the city?
Well, City stay in Raleigh, which is half an hour away. So when we went over there, we got a good look at the highway. And I mean, Chapel Hill's very nice. It's a proper sort of old, it feels very, very American. It's nice and clean and laid back, and there's lots of cafes and bars and stuff. But it's absolutely dead, or it has been the last few days, because it's a very student college town, and there's no students here because it's not term time. So the college is massive. It feels like you're in an American film, but there's no one there. There are more City fans around, and quite a lot of Celtic fans actually. There's a lot of promotion of the game, and it helps that the colours of the UNC, which is the college, is sky blue. So there's a lot of sky blue around as well. We went to an event, and City held a sort of an event for all the supporters club last night, and it was quite nice to see a lot of City shirts and fans from all over the US, and probably a lot of expats as well. And I think it will fill up in the next day or two. But we did go out on Saturday night for a bit to eat, and there was no one around, and I've never seen anywhere as dead on a Saturday night. And in our jet lag state, we were thinking, is it a Sunday? Is it like a Wednesday or something? But it was very, very quiet. But we're told that the students return in 3 weeks, and it will be completely different. But it's nice. I just don't know why City have come here. I think the fact that there's a 50,000 seater stadium and it's quite a sporty town is behind it, but it's going to be completely different when they get to New York. I couldn't think of anywhere more different to sort of a city like New York.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to see if 50,000 people just kind of appear from nowhere for the match. So we are filming this on Monday morning for you.
Yes.
So your Monday has a press conference with Pep and a player, does it?
It does. I think we're talking to Oscar Bob.
Right.
But these things are subject to change. But I think today is going to be a Pep heavy one, because it's the first time we get to speak to them.
And is it a joint press conference with Celtic, or are they doing their own thing?
I do have the chance to go and speak to Brendan Rodgers, but I might not.
That's fine. No. I didn't know if it would be if Pep would be sat next
before
to Brendan or But there's also open training, is there, for
There is,
anyone
yeah.
lucky enough to buy a ticket?
Yeah, and I know they're selling tickets for other ones, so I assume that they're selling tickets for this one as well. I think tickets for the game start at about $60-$70, so it's quite a big one. And I mean, the stadium's a massive college football stadium. You said then 50,000 people going to come out of the woodwork. It was 2 years ago in Green Bay. There was absolutely nothing in the town, but they've obviously got the massive Lambeau Field, and they do fill it up to 90,000, 100,000, I think it is. So that was a town where it all revolved around the stadium. This one, I think, revolves around the university, but yeah, having a big stadium, and it's going to be interesting to see. I'm hoping I'll walk outside today and that there'll be a lot more shirts, but I saw a fair few City shirts yesterday, and there's a City shop that you can go in, and I walked in the other day and the Premier League trophy was just standing there, so it's it does feel like City are slowly taking over the town for a week.
Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, we will reconvene on the pod in a few days. In which time we'll have had that press conference, we've had open training, we'll have had the game against Celtic, and then the post-match press conference. And you will be bringing some New York pizza or something like that to the podcast. I think, will you be in New York by then?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that is the plan.
perfect. You'll be sorry to leave Chapel Hill, but you'll make do in New York.
I think there's a lot going on in New York as well in terms of events, and they're having a slow start to the summer. When I can understand why Guardiola likes it here, but
Yeah,
it will really kick on in terms of pace when they get to New York and Orlando.
perfect. And we will also see if the transfer window is kicked on in pace or if the Saudi Pro League clubs are still lingering. But thank you for listening to the latest episode, Talking City. And yeah, we'll be back in a few days after the first look at City in action ahead of this new season. Please do give us a like and subscribe wherever you can. And we will see you soon.